there's a common theme, which is like not just failure, but kind of just like learning from mistakes that you make throughout the process. So like, what's the importance of like failure and just learning as you go? Because obviously traders, like professional traders, aren't born overnight, and there's a lot of things that you have to experience firsthand to get to the point you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I lose a lot. I lose a third of the time. It's all about controlling the losses and managing the risk. Rule number one, like I said, is cut losses quickly. So you'll see on my trading track record, I show every single trade publicly. I lose 1, 2, 3% over and over and over and over again. But my winners are 5, 10, 15, 20%. So I have more winners than losers, and my winners are bigger dollar gains than the losers. So that way, we can keep growing the accounts.
Awesome. So from what I've seen in the market and whatnot, most of the successful stock traders have like a niche. So what is your niche if you have one, and how did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that I was going to be into penny stocks. Like, I don't think anybody really wants to go into penny stocks. Like, yeah. I don't know why the fuck I ended up here. But I did well on it. And at first I tried investing, and my account really just wasn't growing. So I gravitated towards lower price stocks, stocks that were moving in the volatility. And I really, zeroed in on holding for like a day or two. That's it. And just being real about it. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you have to be real with, who you are, what you're good at, what you're bad at. Like, I've tried other niches. I'm just not good at it. I'm really good at this niche. I've been in it for 20 years now, so I have a lot of experience. But it's not always the niche that you think. Like, you might have one idea of who you are and what you're good at, and then the stats say something differently. So you have to be really, brutally honest with yourself and very introspective and say, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is my personality. Let me really try to work and master that. And I wasn't great at this in the beginning. I had my winning percentage now is like 70%, but in the beginning it was like 45 or 50%. So I've gotten better over time. And I think that too many people expect perfection and they expect success right away. They forget 90% of traders lose. My top student now has turned 1,500 into 7.6 million, but he made nothing the first 9 months. He was just learning. So there's a huge learning curve in the beginning, but then at year 2, year 3, year 5, year 10, it gets easier. And most people just don't stick with that because they want money and success right away. It doesn't work like that. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
That's incredible, though. I mean, 1,500 into millions, like, that's just hopeful for people like us who don't have 100 grand to throw into a portfolio. I mean,
but he also lost his first 1,500.
Right.
So he blew up, and then he re-upped with another 1,500, and then now he's successful. But it took him a while, and it wasn't just one strategy. He's adapted.
Right. I mean, Andre and I have traded, I don't know if you're familiar with, obviously you are, but Forex, like foreign exchange, we've been trading that for a while, and it's not going so well at first, but we're trying to hang around in it, maybe get into penny stocks.
5 out of 6 Forex traders blow up in the first 6 months. So enjoy those stats. Have fun.
That was us.
Forex for me is just like the richest, smartest people in the world you're competing against. Like, you're trying to basically guess something where you have very low odds. I'm competing against fucking idiots who believe that these pump and dumps are real companies. So you choose who your competition is. You guys like trading against George Soros? I'm competing against somebody like who's born out of incest in Kentucky and doesn't know how to like even fucking read, and he's investing glass money because he got like a promotional email that tells him to buy some fucking gold stock down in Colombia.
No, it's true. Yeah. So do you think do you think it's hard to make, I don't know if you have experience with this, like hard to make the transition from Forex to what you do, or?
I mean, you can trade anything and you just start to see different patterns and you see what's easier. Like penny stocks were just easier because the whole world hates on them, therein lies the opportunity. Like with big stocks, if Google or some big company announces some news, that meaningful news, like it's all over the news wires, it's all over the media, it's all over social media within seconds.
Yeah.
So you have most traders who are like obsessed with breaking news, and they're kind of like addicts and slaves to figuring out breaking news. Penny stocks, a lot of the stocks move the biggest on day 2 or day 3 after the news because the news doesn't spread very fast and it takes a while. So anything meaningful, it doesn't even budge. Like most of the time I'm too early. Like on that shrimp stock, I was too early when they announced it. I took my 10, 20% profits, then it's a 300% profit in the next week. I was buying LBUY, which is a weed stock, on the first green day. They had some good earnings. and I bought it. I made 10%. I was like, oh, that was kind of disappointing. 3 days later, the stock had doubled. So I personally don't have enough patience sometimes, but that's the opportunity. It's pretty crazy that I keep hitting singles when I could take doubles or triples or even home runs, but singles win the game in the end for me.
Right. So how hard is it to like battle emotions? Because like if your stock starts going down a little bit, you're like, oh, keep in it, get out, go back to even, but then it just keeps tanking. Or the opposite, like if it's skyrocketing, like you want to stay in, but then it goes back down to zero.
No, this is a game of discipline. So rule number 1 is cut losses quickly. You cannot just hold and hope. Sometimes I cut my losses and then the stock comes back and I shouldn't have taken the losses. And some people are like, ha, Sykes, you took a loss, I took a gain. And I'm like, fuck yourself. Like, I don't care if you do that same trade 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times. Like any one trade doesn't matter. It's how can you develop some kind of discipline, some kind of risk management. So for me, cutting losses quickly, I don't let small mistakes turn into potential big disasters ever. And I've gotten very good at that in the past 2-3 years. It helps being fully transparent. I have all these students looking up to me. I don't want to look like a fucking idiot. So if I do a fucking idiot thing, like I have 1,000 people pounce on me, I don't want that. So this is why I love social media. And I think that we should all share more about our finances and about our strategies online so that, you know, we create this dialogue and you kind of create this community that holds you responsible. A lot of gamblers, a lot of degenerates, like in their mind, they might think they're successful, but it's like a disease. And if you actually look at your numbers in your bank account, you're not successful. So for me, I want to share everything. I want to teach people, but I'm also using my community to help me be better, like hold myself accountable for my actions.
Yeah, and I just had this crazy thought. I think that, like you mentioned, you're transparent with your wins and losses. So I think that part of the learning curve is understanding that you have to be disciplined. You have to cut your losses quick. You have to take your profit, you know, when the time is appropriate. So I think that the fact that a lot of these people and traders out there are only showing their wins, like kind of has a negative effect on these beginner traders because they're not willing to cut losses and they don't actually understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that's why a lot of your students are so successful, because they get to see an exact report of what you're doing, what you're going through, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes down to brutal honesty. You got to be honest with yourself and ideally honest with people on the internet. There's a lot of fly-by-night people who claim to revolutionize everything and like it's too good to be true. For me, I don't trust any trader who doesn't show every single trade. It's not just about how much they make. Like there's a lot of traders on Twitter and they're like, here's a screenshot, look how much I made. But how much did you risk? You know, I don't give a shit if you made $100,000 and you risked $700,000. Or, you know, you had a big loss of 50,000 and you didn't take it and somehow it turned around. Like the average person can't do what you're doing. And so for me, I trade with a $12,000 account. I go back to my $12,000. I trade with a small account in order to teach. I made $632 yesterday. The day before I made about $486. The day before I lost like $50. And people think it's funny. Like I'm on these panels with billionaires and people that are really, you know, rich. And I'm like, I made $500 yesterday. And they look at me, they like laugh. Because on Wall Street, the name of the game is like manage as much money as you can, take a management fee. And I'm like trading my $12,000. I'm like, nope, I don't manage other people money. And people are like, let me give you money. You can take it. And I'm like, nope, I'm just going to teach you. I want you to be self-sufficient. So for me, it's fun to go against the grain. I recently spoke at this mining conference. I'll send you a link to the video. It's pretty brutally honest. I'm like, almost everybody in this conference is full of shit. Everyone's going to teach you about or, you know, hype up some new mineral that they found in some fucking country that's going to give them malaria. Don't believe a word that they say. Like, they're all full of shit. Almost every person in this room is going to be bankrupt if they're already not bankrupt. And, like, no one could deal with that kind of honesty. But you have to be honest, and you have to look at the stats. If most traders are failing, you have to be aware of that. You can't just think this is going to be so easy. Like, oh, I'm just going to turn a few thousand into a few million. Like, what my top students and I have done. I have 5 millionaire students. Most of us began with just a few $1,000s. What we've done is seemingly impossible until you break down the process. You see every single trade, thousands and thousands and thousands of trades, some good, some bad. But again, growing the account more, learning over time, refining. My top student, like I said, has made over 7 million. But along the way, he's had several $100,000, $200,000 losses. And he posted about it. fully transparently, and he's gotten better. His biggest losses still happen because he swings for the fences, frankly, but his biggest losses have been contained. So don't worry so much about what you do, this week, this month, this year even. Like, what can you do today, this week, this month, this year to position yourself the best knowledge-wise and financially speaking in 3, 5, 10, 20 years? You're talking to me 20 years into my journey. I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, and I know my shit inside and out. But most people don't get to year 20. They give up in year 1, year 2, year 3. Oh, I suck at trading. Oh, this isn't for me. Yeah, we all suck at weird things at first, okay? But things that can change your life take time and practice. The best things come later. So I want people to learn to grind. I want them to learn to make mistakes. I want them to learn to, do it transparently. And that way you can speed up your education. I have no magic formula for creating millionaires, but I can speed up the education by sharing my own lessons.
I love that though. Like, I don't get why people shame you for making $500 in a day, because you're helping the average man out. Like, every guy in that room is built for people with $1 million to invest. Like, you're the guy that's helping out common people. Like,
I love that. You have to understand, I like pissing people off. I like getting them to think differently, being like, what? Like, they're all wearing suits. I don't even own a fucking suit. I'm traveling carry-on all over the world. I fucking love it,
Right.
Like, you each find what makes you happy. And for me, I like going against the grain. I like teaching. It's so much better than managing money for a bunch of rich fucking pricks who, like, frankly, just don't care about any of this philosophy talk. I'm trying to teach them. They're like, just give me the returns. Shut the fuck up. And I'm like, no, I don't even want to deal with you, let alone make you money. Like, you couldn't pay me enough to deal with your bullshit. And the same thing with broke people. I don't want to deal with ultra rich people, and I don't want to deal with broke people. Broke people have the worst attitudes whatsoever. I have 1,000 free videos on YouTube, and I'm like, watch them. And they're like, which ones? I'm like, you're fucking broke. You have nothing else to do. Watch them all 5 times. Stop playing Fortnite. Stop watching Netflix. Fucking eat your fucking cup of noodle soup. Watch all of my video lessons 10 times and then recite them backwards because you have no hope whatsoever. You're fucking broke. So, and then the broke people get angry. They're like, I'm offended. I'm like, I don't care. You're fucking broke. You're irrelevant. Look at our president. He's rich. You need to get money to get power. I don't make the rules. I just recognize them.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I love the brutal honesty there, really.
You have to be brutally honest. And so the broke people always make excuses. I'm like, listen, whoa. Like, you can be broke or lazy. You can't be both. So choose one.
Yeah, and I think it's even more frustrating now, like the broken, lazy people, is because there's so much opportunity for literally anyone to create wealth, like in the stupidest ways possible.
And learning in any way possible. Like, we have this opportunity. You guys, where are you in Bumblefuck, New York?
It starts with a B, actually. It's called Binghamton, if you could say that. I don't know, Binghamton.
I've been to Binghamton. I've been to upstate Binghamton, Bumblefuck, New York. And my freshman roommate was actually from East Binghamton, Mike Morley. Wow. Mike Morley represent. And, I think it's amazing that we can even have this conversation. I'm in Thailand. This just shows like that the world has changed technology-wise and education-wise, and it's stupid that more people don't take advantage of it.
Right. So in terms of trading, I mean, do you usually trade like in terms of fundamentals, or do you use technical analysis when you analyze?
I mean, there's not many fundamentals in the companies that I trade. Like, they all have pie in the sky predictions and like 1 or 2 products. So it's mostly technical analysis, but I do the digging too, because I want to see the ugly financials. I want to see the conflicts of interest with the management. I want to see when the restricted shares become unrestricted and where the warrants are. The penny stock game is mainly about small companies lying and hyping themselves up enough so that their stock goes up so they can raise money. And then with that money, they either pay their executives too much, and the executives pretend to be successful in front of their families even though they're not, or they can raise money to actually try to be successful even though there's like a 99% likelihood that they're going to fail. There have been a few penny stocks that have made it. So it's not like all of them, but it's like finding a diamond in the rough. For me, I like going with the odds. So I just expect that every single penny stock will fail as a company. I expect that every single CEO is lying to me. I expect the worst out of everybody, and I'm never surprised.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's why penny stocks get such a bad rep, is because people are trying to actually like invest in them long term rather than taking advantage of the movements that happen every day.
I mean, you're expecting the world in these junkers. It's no different than going to like the racetrack and betting on the 50-1 long shot and expecting them to win every single time.
That's
like,
so funny.
We don't. That's what it is.
Yeah. I was just talking to him about before. I'm from like Albany, so I go to Saratoga Racecourse and I bet on like a 55-1 horse in the cash, and I was like the happiest guy. But
hey, listen, it's fun when you win. Don't get me wrong, but that's not a strategy that is consistent that can get you well. I like winning like the jackpot every now and then, but for me, again, the way that I've made my wealth, the way that my top students have made their wealth is predictable patterns, single after single after single. Every now and then you can get a little more aggressive, especially later on when you have a cushion. But in the beginning, if you have a $5,000 account or $10,000 account, figure out a strategy where you can make $100, $200, $300 in a day. It can add up. And while most of Wall Street looks down on $100, $200, $300 a day, that's what I've done. And then I just, grow my account over time.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you were first starting out with such a small account, I mean, what was your like earliest trading strategy?
When I first started, I didn't know about penny stocks. I didn't know about trading. I just invested in like the Boston Celtics, Viacom, and Supercuts were my first 3 stocks. And after 3 months, like my $12,000 was like $11,900. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is the stock market? So I started gravitating towards lower price stocks. This was back in 1998, 99. The stock market's going crazy. Internet stocks are going crazy. So I invested in some of these bullshit internet companies, and I valued just their volatility. Net Taxi was one of them. And they were like an early wannabe, I guess back then it was GeoCities and MySpace and Friendster. They're early Facebooks, early Instagram, early social networks. And they were valued so highly. But I was like, well, everything's valued so highly so they can keep going. So I was just buying momentum stocks, buying stocks as they broke out to new highs, and taking profits along the way. Usually always selling too soon. One of my first successful strategies, which was actually amazing because it just came around in the past year again, but back in 99, companies would add .com to their name. So I bought like Sportsman's Guide. They're a camping company, and they changed their name to sportsmansguide.com. And the stock tripled over 4 days because, wow you're going to sell camping gear online.
Is this .io now? Is that what it changed to?
What?
.io? Is like
this was back in 1999. I mean, it was just sportsmansguide.com. And now in the past year, in 2 years really, a lot of companies got into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and their stocks did the same exact tripling over the course of a week. It was the exact same pattern. And I was like, this is stupid. It's not even going to last, but I'm going to ride it. And I used the same strategy, literally roughly 20 years later.
Wow. So how long did it take you to find your repeatable strategy? Because I think that's probably like the most important thing, is to find a strategy that you could repeat over time.
There's different strategies, and you adapt in different markets. Back in 99, I was buying the .coms, for example. I was also saw this pattern. I didn't understand it at the time. It's actually kind of funny to look back, but a lot of these penny stocks would close very strongly into the market close at 4 p.m. Eastern. And so I would buy at 3:50 p.m. Eastern, 3:55 p.m. Eastern, buy the stock as it's closing strong, because then it would gap up the next day, 5, 10, 20%. And it worked like every time. And so you just had to pick a big penny stock with big volume, like the most active stock, the biggest percent gainer of the day, and they would 90% of the time gap up 5, 10%. I was like, this is the easiest pattern ever. I'm a genius. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was exposed 2 years later. The reason why they would go up overnight, they don't trade pre-market back then. There was no pre-market trading. So all the buy orders would stack up at the open. What inspired all these buy orders? Well, there were telemarketers in boiler rooms calling people, promoting these stocks at dinner time, because that's when most people were at home. So I was inadvertently riding these boiler room pump and dumps as they were being telemarketed to idiots at dinner time. The idiots at dinner time would take the call and they would say, wow, yeah, let me buy 5,000 shares. The next morning, the broker, the pump and dump broker, would put in the order for 5,000 shares. So everybody who got telemarketed to at dinner would put in their orders right at the open, and it would create a gap up. And I had no idea about this. I just saw the pattern. And then when boiler rooms were exposed, we started realizing like, oh, I was riding this. And that was what led me to become a short seller, because all those pump and dumps would later crash after the telemarketing calls stopped. After the budget was spent for pumps, there's no reason to pump them up, and it's like a plane without fuel. And so I wrote it back down. So I made my second million shorting. I made my first million going long.
That's awesome. So yeah, so it just shows that there's always an opportunity to make money no matter what the market's doing, unless it's just
sometimes there's no trade. Like right now, as we're talking, there's no hot sectors. Like weed has crashed, CBD has crashed, Bitcoin has crashed, China has crashed. I'm trading fucking shrimping companies. Like what the fuck? Hey, Tim Sykes, Millionaire Mentor and Trader. Thank you for watching my videos. I hope that they help you. I want to share everything that I've learned over the years. You can check out more videos right over there. And also click subscribe so that you can watch all of these videos, get that knowledge, and become my next millionaire student.